Okay, there we go. I should learn how to schedule the link, but okay. So I'll just check this link just in case
Yeah, I
there are
just retweeted
anybody.
it as well. So
Perfect, thank you. And I'll just put in the link to your Steam page in case anybody's watching wants to check it out as well.
cool.
Perfect. Okay, so um, I am delighted to be joined as part of the big adventure event hosted by HitSense, the publishers of, amongst many other titles, Inspector Waffles and many other games. I am delighted to be joined by Ralph from Hanging Gardens Interactive, and you are working on Sonority, which is being published by, is it Application Heidelberg, who have made.
Application Systems Heidelberg, exactly.
Thank you. And they have made only great games so far. They've published only great games so far. So I've noted that this game will be another great game that we can add to the
We
list.
hope to not break the streak, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be kind of awkward if anyone was the one who broke the streak. Like, but it's kind of like the Marvel movies. Like, which one is going to be the one that does badly?
Yeah.
Well, from what I've seen and heard of this game, I don't think it will. I think we were talking that a lot of people are already interested in streaming this game and in finding out more about this game.
Yeah.
So I'm delighted to have you here, Ralph. Thank you for joining me. Before we talk about Sonority, your game, I wonder if you could let us know what your give a brief introduction about yourself and what your favorite adventure or narrative or puzzle games are.
Absolutely. So I'm Ralph. I work at Hang Guns Interactive. I do a lot of producing there, but obviously we're such a small company that we all wear many hats. So I do a lot of in-engine work as well. Voice. I work with the voice actors. Co-wrote the story with my good friend Willy. So yeah, that's kind of my roles.
Cool. What about your favorite adventure game? Favorite games in general?
So, about narrative games, I really like the new wave of Firewatch kind of games, where it's almost like watching a movie, and there's a lot of deep storytelling and just amazing voice acting in there. Also, the old Zelda games did that very well in a lot of depth, just in a different way, so a bit slower and a bit less involved. But I also enjoy like really subtle storytelling, kind of like the Dark Souls vibe, where like everything has kind of a backstory, but you aren't like pushed to actually experience it. You kind of have to look for it yourself.
Yeah, so you seem to like more like a lot of exploration type games where you can explore a lot. Like, well, Zelda, of
Absolutely.
course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which,
So
so
yeah,
I think you're. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I had a bit of a lag there.
I think the Irish internet again.
German one isn't better. Not much, at least.
Oh,
So yeah, I do
sorry, I
enjoy
cut you off there. Yeah.
all kinds of games. I'm lately I've been very into like narrative focused games though. So I do enjoy a puzzle here and there, but the narrative for me is like the big thing, and I also obviously worked together to write the story of Sonority. So it was very helpful to just play a lot of narrative games and see what others did. So you can do well yourself, hopefully.
Yeah, so you mentioned Firewatch and other games that exploration games or walking simulators. Although I don't know if
Hmm.
that term is a negative term for those games. I love these games myself as well.
Yeah.
But I suppose we can chat before we go to your game Sonority, which I believe is like it was a musical based game as well, or musical based puzzles.
Yeah,
But
we call it a music puzzle adventure game, which is a mouthful, but that's kind of what it is, really. Yeah.
Well, before we talk about that, because the interesting thing about Firewatch and walking simulators is that they're not usually, I guess, puzzles in those games. There's a lot of exploration and narrative focus.
Yeah.
Now, some mainly traditional adventure game players would say that for them, an adventure game needs to have puzzles, and they don't like maybe those games because there are no puzzles to speak of. What's your opinion about it as a game developer? Do you think an adventure game needs to have puzzles, or can it still be classified an adventure game if there's mainly just exploration and story?
I feel like the term can be used pretty broadly.
Mm,
I feel like a lot of games could contain adventure, and it can range from something like Dark Souls, which is very, very close still to an adventure game for me, to like the other extreme of like the actual walking simulator stuff, like Journey, for example, I think is a good one for that. So I do think that it can be used very broadly, and then we have so many subcategories that we might as well use them, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these days an adventure could be anything, from The Walking Dead to Firewatch to Her
Yeah.
Story,
It's
Disco
such a
Elysium.
broad term.
It's, but I mean, I think for me the main question is, is the game good? Would I enjoy it? I think a definition is good. So we can see what games are similar. Like, oh, if you like Monkey Island, you might like Broken Sword and that kind of thing. But then I think we can be too limiting with the term as well, that we mightn't see other great games that are being made.
Yeah, and Steam does a relatively good job of that with tags, because you can have like a ton of different tags, so you can really like dial in what the game's essence is and what it is similar to. So that helps a lot as well.
Cool. Well, then about your game Sonority as well, which we've mentioned. Well, first of all, how did you guys set up the studio then, and how did this game come about?
Yeah, so kind of the origin story is that
Yes, it's like speaking of Marvel, the origin
Yeah,
story
exactly.
of a superhero.
so someone got bitten by a spider. No, we it all started with the idea that came from the mind of Willy, who also founded the studio initially. He had this idea and then did his master thesis about the idea and did a bunch of research how you could do it and what you could do with it. And Willy and I have known each other for, I'm gonna date myself a bit, but it's been like 23 years or something, and I'm not super old. So most of my life, I've Willy has been like one of my, or the best friend I've ever had. So when he like came to me and asked me, hey, do you want to like join and do this? I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? And we've had the great luck to meet Vlad, who is our 3D artist and whose beautiful art is in Sonority. And he's been just wonderful, doing absolutely grand work. The studio is now currently these 3 people, but we've been bigger. We at our biggest point, I think we've had 8 people working on Sonority. Some of them still like students doing internships with us, but some of them also just programmers and other people. So we've had the range from like 8 to 3 people who are now the core team and still working on Sonority.
Cool. And how long has it taken you to work on this game?
The studio was founded in 2019. So it's been a good, well, it's been 2 years of actually like buckling down and actually developing the thing, and a year of like inspiration and other stuff where we've not worked full time on it. But it's been at least 2 years of actually full time development.
Okay, that's cool. And so then about the game itself. So we've had the origin story of the studio. What can you tell us about the game, about the story? Because you mentioned that for you it's important to have a good narrative in the game, the game that you like. So I can imagine the narrative is important in this game as well. So what can you tell us about the game? What's the story of the game? What can we expect? Of course, without spoilers.
Yeah, I'll start off talking a bit about the mechanic, which is like really the unique thing about Sonority. So as I said, it's a music-based puzzle game, which might sound weird at first, but what you do is you combine notes, as you do in music, to melodies, and these melodies then solve puzzles. And obviously, as you do, you have multiple puzzles in a single level, and all these melodies that you solve the puzzles with then develop into like a big song. So that's basically the soundtrack of the game, right? You unlock the soundtrack of the game by puzzling through the levels. And that's kind of the rough mechanic description of it.
Yeah, I'm just seeing some of it. I played a little bit before our interview, and I'm seeing, and it looks gorgeous. We can talk more about that as well. But yeah, it's I don't know if many. I mean, I know we had discussion on our Discord about music puzzles and that, or different kinds of puzzles. So now this might be a stupid question, but are you guys musicians as well in the team?
Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we all love music. We've all been playing music forever. Willie and I had a band for a short while there. Very unsuccessful band, but nonetheless, Vlad also plays guitar. I've been playing drums for forever. Harmonica, like all kinds of stuff. Willie plays piano and bass, and yeah, so we're pretty musical, the whole team. So yeah, you don't, and that's also a big disclaimer I have to make here. You don't need any musical theory knowledge or anything of the kind. You don't need to have like perfect
I was about
pitch.
to ask that as well.
None of that is required. What we want to do with the game really is to bring music closer to people who are just like listening to songs and not really thinking about what's happening. We really want to take those people who are interested in puzzle or adventure games and say, look, this is what music is made of. Like, right? These are the building blocks of the songs you hear and what you hear every day on the radio or wherever you go. And this is how music is made, and you can do it as well. Like that's the big thing. It's not like some elite thing. You can make music as well, and that's like the goal for Sonority.
Cool. So you don't need like a degree in I don't know, music, or you don't need to be an experienced, talented musician. I mean, it'd be fine as well if different games for different people. So it kind of sound like like general puzzles that would accept with musical notes this time.
Yeah.
From at least from what I understand.
Yeah. So we the mechanic is based on like a relatively simple mathematical thing, right? You need to like raise objects, you lower objects, you rotate objects, but then there's also the aspect of rhythm we have in there. So we have a clock that's always going in the background, like a metronome thing. And everything in the game, Esther and also the mechanics, move at that pace. So you can sometimes move stones around, these music stones that store the notes, and you can delay a thing going up and down. So you have like this rhythm aspect of it as well. So on the one side you have the melody, but also a rhythm aspect. So it is. We think it's a pretty cool spin on a like normal puzzle mechanic.
Yeah, now I can just say that from the little that I played of the demo, I didn't complete the demo, but the little that I played, no, I am far from musically, I'm musically challenged, I would say. I love music, but I can't play a note. I'm not creative with music. Yeah. But even I was able to, to play the game and get through at least a small part that I played. So
we've had very good feedback from people who are not musicians at all that they can still do it no problem whatsoever.
I mean, if there was such a thing, I'd probably be like an anti-musician, an anti-rhythmic. When I dance, I invent my own rhythm. So if I could play this game, then I think absolutely anybody would be able to play it. But no, it sounds fascinating because I don't know many other games like this. Other music puzzle. I believe there was another game about Mozart, maybe released a few years ago. I don't know, or about
yeah,
one of these.
The one that's on the where you have like a stage in front of you. I think. There's been a bunch of like music and rhythm games out there, but I think we are really the first one to combine like a strong narrative with like the puzzle and the music side of it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Purple the Rapper I remember had a good narrative, right?
Yeah, no,
No, it's
that's true.
definitely true that this game certainly seems unique from what I can see. I suppose then with I mean, you got the music yourself, so I guess you don't need to get out, to outsource the music. Then it's yourselves who are playing the music, which
Yeah, it's all
sure come in
done in
handy.
house. Yeah.
And then, regarding feedback of the player to get the puzzle difficulty just right, I take it do you need like a lot of testing, for
Yeah.
people, maybe for musicians and for people who are not musicians as well?
Yeah.
It,
We've done a lot of playtesting with Sonority from the early stages on, actually. So the first playtest was like almost 2 years ago, and we've always had a questionnaire checking like how musically inclined are you. Have you been playing piano for 20 years, or have you never even touched an instrument? So that was very important to us that we get the balance, the puzzle balance right. But that doesn't even mean that someone who's like an amazing musician will instantly solve all our puzzles, because there's also quite a lot of logic involved in solving them. So yeah, we've done a ton of playtests with a ton of different people. But by now certain we've had over 300 like actual playtesters, and from
wow.
from all walks of life. We've had like 60-year-olds, and we've had like 12-year-olds, so everything in between as well.
That seems like a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. Corona has actually made it slightly easier to get people to do online testing, and Discord is also a great tool. We've done a lot of testing with my former university and other unis in the UK, especially, that have big Discord servers that are really interesting in helping people like us out. So very grateful for that.
Sounds great. And where did the idea come from? I guess, I mean, I know you said you were musicians, you were in a band.
Mm-hmm.
And where did the idea come from then to make a musical inspired game with a strong narrative?
Yeah, so I can't directly speak for Willy, but I think the initial idea really came out of the strong like need to tell people that music is not something that's very elitist. In Germany, our music lessons in school are very, so this is like C, D, E, F, and these are the notes, and this is Mozart, and this is Beethoven, and they're all great, and they've done this, and it's very dry. And we really want to introduce people to music in a very different and a very fun way. And you don't even notice that like you actually know the difference between like a C and a D after playing the game for a while, right? So I think that was the inspiration and that.
Cool. To try and make people, as you say, who are not musically inspired, so that we can enjoy music as well, or enjoy creating the music in the game as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So then about the story, what can you tell us about the narrative then? Because no, it's a musical inspired game, but then what can you tell us about the narrative and the world we're in?
Yeah, so in Sonority, we didn't want to like save the world in the story. That was very important to us. It's still, even though we've worked so many hours on it and it's been in development for a long time, it's not a huge game. we expect a playthrough time to be like, obviously it's a puzzle game, so it really depends, from anywhere between like 5-6 hour range. We don't know that yet, but that's what we expect. So we really wanted to focus in on a small slice of life kind of story. So you will be playing Esther, our main character, a teenage girl that's on a quest to help her friend, the bear Batama. So that's the setup of it. And
okay.
On her journey, she has to like overcome adversity in form of puzzles, reluctant friends, hostile anthropomorphized animals. All kinds of stuff. and obviously she'll collect instruments, learn how music works, learn how music in this our world in the rockery is actually magic, and what she can do with it, and what others have done with it as well. Because the place where Sonority plays, the rockery, is a pretty melancholic place. Not a lot of people or animals live there anymore after something that happened in the past. You'll also get to know that place very well and get to experience what happened there. And we have a bunch of different ways and means of conveying what happened there in the past. So at first it starts off very lighthearted, gets a bit melancholic, and then hopefully we also have a bunch of moments of humor that kind of break up the gloom.
Yeah, no, it certainly looks, really, really interesting. As you mentioned, it looks very colorful, but then you mentioned it'd be melancholic then as well. And in this case, I'm curious as well, how did you go about writing both the story and the puzzles? Because from talking to other developers, I know that it's one challenge is to make the puzzles fit the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And especially since you've mentioned the narrative is important for you, and in this case having musically inspired puzzles, which I know the music is part of the story itself, but how did you go about fitting both the story and making sure that the music based puzzles in the game made sense to the story, and that the warrant was like, oh, now this is like, what, that does make sense. So how do you make them fit naturally in the story of the game?
We have a bunch of different ways of doing that. So some I won't reveal quite yet. You'll have to play yourself, but others I will. So to start off with, Esther goes somewhere where earlier on in the lifespan of this place, the rockery, novices came there and had kind of like a parkour, like the baby's first music puzzle. In that world. So to teach them the music and the magic behind it, the preceptors, we call them, the old teachers, kind of had that parkour where you have to solve puzzles and puzzles and puzzles and puzzles, and then you get somewhere. And later on we have a bunch of other setups for that. So that was kind of our way of saying, okay, we need narrative, but we also need to merge that with the story. But we're also not that much of a classical adventure game that we need to have like each dialogue hint at something, and we don't have a lot of like word puzzles and that stuff. So it's all in that case it's separate, but we the story is inspired by the puzzles, and the puzzles also somewhat inspire the story.
Oh, sort of fit in together then kind of naturally.
So that was a big thing, yeah. And
cool.
About the narrative, it's also kind of interesting. We have German voice acting, but also English voice acting. So that was very, very important to us to bring the game to a German-speaking audience, but also the broader, obviously English-speaking audience. But we also have subtitles for a lot of other languages. I think we're at like 15 or 13, something.
Wow.
Something crazy like that. So yeah, we'll have something for everyone.
That's great to hear. And then with regards to voice acting, did you do the voice acting in one language first, or did you do both German and English at the same time, or how did you go about doing that?
So the story was written kind of parallel. The portions I wrote, I sometimes started in English, sometimes in German. Willy mostly wrote in German, then I translated it. But it was kind of a challenge to do it that way. Because we have a lot of poems and songs in Sonority that like kind of have to rhyme, and you have to have the right rhythm for it. So that whole process of getting them from German into English or from English into German was very challenging. But we hope we've done a good job. And voice acting wise, we did it character by character. So we did German Esther, English Esther, and then the other characters kind of the same way.
Cool. Yeah, it must have been difficult, as you mentioned, with the rhyming out the poetry to get them to to rhyme and make sense. I imagine in both English and German.
Yeah. So my first life before the developer life, I was a translator. So
Oh, okay, okay. So that
I
that
hope
helps, I
I've done it
imagine.
justice. I hope I've done
I
it justice.
Yeah, because I did, I mean, a very brief course in translating Spanish to English and English to Spanish, and I can speak Spanish, but translating I found very difficult. It's a kind of you work a different part of your brain, and
Very much so. Yeah.
and I can just imagine, especially translating poetry and something that rhymes because it might make sense in one language but not
Yeah.
in the other.
Yeah, songs are very hard as well because
Yeah.
obviously when they're like every note is assigned to a syllable in some kinds of songs, so you
Mm.
have to actually have the same amount of syllables in every word as you have in the other language. So yeah, it gets pretty complex.
I can imagine. There was, I think, in our Discord chat was someone who mentioned. I don't know if you played the Curse of Monkey Island. You probably have.
Absolutely.
The song. At least in the English version, there is a song. A pirate that I was meant to be,
Hmm.
and every time a guy with three puts speaks to try to get him to stop the song. It's a rhyme. They rhyme it with something else, and he stops it by saying, "Oh, we'll all need an orange." And they can't rhyme with that in English, so they stop the song.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, how could you do it in any other language? It
Yeah.
must
No,
be very
that's
challenging.
that's
But
the challenge of localization. It's a very interesting job at times.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure you have a lot of work there. But it sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Very
uh,
interesting.
and then how did you find the voice actors? Because from what I played at the demo, the voice acting was really good. And
Yes.
I know that nowadays, I think, there are more and more talented professional actors available than maybe 15 years ago or so. But in your case, how did you find both the voice actors for the English and German voiceovers?
A lot of looking, a lot of searching. We really just went through databases of voice actors and looked and looked and looked. And in the end, we also had help from our publisher Ash to find the right people, and we're just so happy to have found the amazing voice actors. I'll talk about English mostly because that's
Of
that's
course,
probably
yes.
mostly the audience. Um,
Oh, you'd be
so
surprised. There are people from parts of Europe anyway. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, with
yeah,
the English.
so we have Rhiannon Mushel as Aster, and she's just lovely. She's a stage actress, I think, first, and with Corona has kind of looked into voice acting, and we were so fortunate to get her casted because she is, yeah. I mean, it's a really an amazing performance, and the emotion she gets in the lines we've written is just, yeah. I mean, it's just almost brought a tear to my eye when we recorded for the first time. It was really really cool to see that come to life. So we're so grateful.
Cool. And how did you go about directing it? Did you go about directing in both English and German, or did you have a voice director?
Yeah, I'll quickly talk about the other like main role we have.
Oh
That's
yes, sorry, my mistake. Yes, yes.
no worries. That's Andrew James Spooner. Some of the UK people may know him because he did the Muppets. He was in the Muppet show.
Wow.
Um, and he is, I mean, he is just also, he does a perfect rendition of the Lumbo we had in our heads when we wrote the dialogue. So he goes from like very happy to very grumpy to very serious at times, and it's just seamless. He's a real pro, so we're also like super happy to have cast him.
Perfect.
For the recording process, Willie and I are somewhat experienced when it comes to directing, voice acting. Willie has done audiobooks before in his professional career, so we kind of said, well, we'll just do it ourselves and hope to get some good performances. And it's been very very easy with the actors we've had to get good performances. So we're grateful for that.
Definitely. And then the German voiceovers. Then,
Mhm.
do you want to mention who they are as well?
I can.
If you
Absolutely.
can, of
Yeah.
course. If
So we have Michael Titz, who is let's I want to do him justice. He is, I think, 76 years old, and
Wow.
he's playing Lumbo, and I mean he is absolutely great. He is an old musical star in Germany from the like West Berlin times, and
Wow.
it's really cool to have him on board. He also does a great rendition of Lumbo in German. We recorded him in a proper studio when in the summer when COVID was kind of down, so we actually drove to Berlin, recorded him in a proper studio. So that was also a very cool experience. And for Esther, we have Zamina Kunik, who is a very very young voice actress, but nonetheless, like she absolutely took up the challenge that Michael laid down and ran with it. So also very very happy to have her. She's also active on Twitch as a streamer in the like German sub community of Twitch.
Nice. Well, again, from the English version, I can tell that the voice acting is very good. I'm pretty sure from what you said the
Good to
German
hear.
is as well. Now, Laura in the chat says, yeah, Shorsh's rhythm is definitely questionable. I mean, I can't argue with that. And she also asks, were there any games that inspired the team in making this game? So were there any particular games at all that inspired you?
So I think we started off with the idea of Zelda, but without a sword and with panpipes.
Okay.
That was kind of the goal we had in mind. Obviously, Ocarina of Time and these kinds of games inspired us heavily, especially when it comes to the musical part of Sonority. But other than that, it's really just a mix of all the adventure, of all the puzzle games we've all played together. From The Witness more recently to Portal and other games that kind of do the intertwined story and puzzle aspect so well.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't played The Witness, but I've heard plenty of good things. Many people say it's a classic.
Talos Principle as well
yes,
is very very strong and inspired the puzzles pretty heavily.
Oh, cool. Well, then as well, one thing we haven't mentioned, and I guess it's pretty hard to mention at least on the audio side, but it's the look of the game. The game looks spectacular. It looks really, really good. As I said, it looks very colorful and cheerful. But then I'm sure the story. Well, you mentioned it's melodramatic or not melodramatic. Melancholic, yeah. Not melodramatic. Sorry, my mistake.
Not quite that far.
But how? So again, what engine are you guys using? And I suppose what are you guys going for with the visuals? What was probably your objective with the visuals of the game?
Yeah. So we're using Unity. Vlad, our 3D artist, is using Maya for models and stuff. But other than that, it's mostly Unity. Also, the some animations are also done in Unity. Aesthetic-wise, we're inspired by kind of more like low-key indie games like Rime, Moss, Windbound, Kina Bridge of Spirits. It's also a big one that came out recently that we all just found gorgeous. And I mean, the 3D character, I have to say, is the one thing, the 3D Esther is the one thing we did not do in-house. We had a partner in Room 8 Studios with that, who've just done a beautiful job of taking the art we had of her and turning it into a really beautiful character with great animations that we're also grateful for. But other than that, everything's done in-house. There's barely any asset purchases, so everything you really see is built by Vlad. And
wow,
we're very proud of him. Yeah, it's a ton of time it takes to do that, and we're all very very dedicated. So our hearts really are in this project.
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me, what people can do, especially nowadays. That, like you said, you're indie studio yourself with a small team, and yet this game with the animations as well, from what I saw, like even with the blocks and everything,
Hmm.
just the characters, how detailed and how beautiful the backgrounds are.
Yeah.
That you don't need to be a AAA studio to be able to make a game that looks really nice anymore, which is
Yeah.
great as well. It's
If you're willing to throw a lot of time at it, everything can be accomplished currently. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I
really
mean,
cool.
of course, it takes a lot of time, as you mentioned, but there's clearly talent as well in your
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
which is great to see. And now I also wanted to ask you, because it's a discussion that we have a lot as well about games and about difficulty and about accessibility. Now, I believe that developers should make the game that they want to make. I've always try and push for that
Hmm.
nobody should demand. I know that players and fans, we are demanding. We say, no, we want a game like this. Like include these puzzles, include it this way. But I always
Yeah.
say, look, let developers make the games that they want to make,
Hmm.
and see what happens. Now, I also personally, I'm happy to see that there's more accessibility options, or more options for people as well. So now you mentioned as well about how these audio puzzles, you wanted to make them accessible for people,
Yeah.
like myself who are musically challenged. What is your opinion in general overall about accessibility then in games? Do you think that that more games are more accessible? Do you think we still have more ways to go? Is there anything that you would like to see more of, or anything? Just in general, what's your opinion?
I mean, absolutely. I think we're heading in the right direction, and a lot of big games have also come to include like colorblind mode by default,
Mm,
which was a big thing, especially in like competitive games. Um, but also other accessibility features are really important. We've included controller support for Sonority, so there will be complete controller support. I know that's important
mm,
for some people. And otherwise, it's hard with Sonority really. The obvious question is for Sonority, can deaf people play it? Like that's the question that comes to
mm.
mind first for me, because that's going to be the biggest challenge, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I suppose there are limitations as well, depending because you're an indie studio as well and
Yeah,
resources as well. So I think in a
absolutely.
perfect ideal world, these games I'm sure could be played by everybody.
And
Um,
we've managed to get Sonority to a place where we have everything apart from like 2% and a bunch of optional content that could be played by a deaf person as well. So
wow.
so you don't need to actually hear most of the stuff. But obviously, and that's like a really important but here, it'll take away a lot from the experience when you're not listening to what's on screen.
Mm.
But
But yeah.
that's the only caveat I have.
Well, I mean,
But
since it's a musically, inspired game, I suppose that's
yeah,
kind of natural. But
yeah.
no, I have to say that, as I said, I was able to play the demo from, so I think that should alleviate any. If anybody does have any concerns, thinking I can't play a musical instrument, look, I can play through the demo. It's there. Like I wouldn't say it's dumbed down, but it did help me, like you do help the
And
player like get
yeah, I
used to
mean
it. I would
the
say.
progression and how we build up the difficulty. I think we've
Mm,
put a lot of work into that through testing and through just being very careful of what to do where and what not to do. So
yeah.
hopefully we did a good job with that.
But so far it seems like you have, you're in the right direction at least.
Yeah.
And another question actually that I heard from, I think someone in one of the developer interviews at the Big Adventure event
Hmm.
is, and I'll ask this to you: is this is this your, are you guys full time working on this game, or are you guys working this part time as well? Or now,
Yeah.
if you're not able to answer, that's no problem at
Oh,
all. But I'm also,
absolutely, absolutely.
the question was as well, um, if this is your full time, or even if this is part time, how do you
Mhm.
guys look after your mental health? Because game
Yeah.
development can be very stressful, from what I understand. So,
Yeah.
or any advice you have other indie developers?
So we Sonority is financed partially by a German grant. and partially by the company itself. We did some software projects before that to finance parts of Sonority, and that's lasted us mostly through the development. We are not getting paid handsomely. let's put it like that. But
so you're not multi-millionaires with
not
helicopters
yet.
and
not yet.
maybe when the game is released.
Yeah, who knows if enough people buy it. But yeah, we're all working full time on this. We've all been working full time on this for most of 2 years now. And when I say full time, it's a bit more than than a normal full time job. We all put in
long hours, I imagine.
Yeah, long hours. I mean, especially the last weeks with awards coming up and the release obviously coming up for Sonority. We've like worked through weekends completely, like 12, 13 hours, Saturdays, Sundays. And yeah, it's hard. Obviously you need to be passionate about what you do. You need to be really have the heart in the project. And I think you also need to make sure that everyone is on board with that. So you don't want to force people into those hours. You want them to say, obviously I'll do it because this is what I enjoy and I have fun doing it and I enjoy seeing a good product. So that's, I think, the first important thing, to not force people into doing it. And the second thing is you just need some other thing in your life that you enjoy, and you just can switch off, completely switch off the developer part of your brain and just do that other thing. So be it like walking outside, working out, or even I play like RPGs on the side. I play some competitive games or walk my dog, and those kinds of things I think are important to kind of balance out the stupid amount of work you do sometimes. But also I think breaks after the game's published. We hope to take a bit of a longer break and see that we can kind of regain our creative juices and hope to make a next game that's as creative as Sonority.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be able to travel once the game is released again.
Oh my god!
Because I've spent a lot of time in my house, my room, like I'm sure nearly everyone around the world the last year and a half, 2 years.
Oh, we're so sad. Like some of the award shows and the GDC, or like all kinds of like trade shows as well. We're so sad that we couldn't attend a single one. Gamescom. Will and I attended our first Gamescom together when we were like 12.
Oh wow!
And like to be there as a developer would have just been absolutely amazing. But sadly, it's just the online version. Currently.
Yeah, which is not. I mean, I think it's great that they're going ahead. I mean, I think it's very important. But yeah, it's just. I think what I've learned the last 2 years is that nothing beats like being in person. Like, I mean, I love doing this podcast and speaking to other developers. If I could speak face to face, like in person. But yeah, even Laura went to Gamescom. Was it? Yeah, I think it was Gamescom a few years ago. And just hearing her speak about it, like, yeah, I want to go next time. Then COVID hit.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, hopefully. Now, Kieran in the chat mentioned that's brilliant. A game centered around music, which is almost all playable for deaf people, is a great achievement.
Yeah,
which it really is. Yeah. It really, really is. I was expecting you to say no. Sorry, there's nothing we can do. But the fact that it is,
which I think would also have been reasonable.
I don't think
because it's very niche
in terms of accessibility. There has exactly, but no, I mean, from what I've played, I really enjoyed the demo. The game looks amazing. It sounds amazing. Do you have any release date, more or less, or when it's ready? Or
we will release first quarter this year. So probably looking at
first quarter 2022.
Yeah, looking at the end of the first quarter probably. But we'll have more news very soon. So we have some dates in mind, but we'll have more news soon.
Very nice. Can we expect the game to be released?
Oh, sorry, you broke up there.
Where can we expect the game to? Sorry, where can we expect the game to be released? So,
Okay.
I presume it's on Steam and anywhere else, or
Yeah. First of all, we're going to release on PC. With other consoles, we'll see later on if there's ports coming. But we'll release on Steam. We're currently working on maybe also releasing Epic Store and Humble Bundle Store, but nothing like firm on that. It's probably gonna release there as well. Yeah.
perfect.
But, first and foremost, Steam. Yeah.
Perfect. Now I'll include the links in the show notes and in the description when I put the video up later on as well. Is there any? Where can people find out more about the game and about your company?
I think the easiest is just on the Steam page. Everything about the game really is on there. We have 2 trailers. One more coming soon, hopefully. A bunch of screenshots. And if you're even more interested, we have a Discord server that people can join, and we're happy to answer any questions on there as well about the game. And yeah, we hope to. We have a semi-active community on there, but if anyone wants to join, I'll just drop you the link. And
yeah, I'll include that in the show notes as well and description. So I'll put that into the chat for people watching live. And yeah, well, I think that's everything from my end. Then, is there anything else that you'd like to mention to either people watching or listening, Ralph, before we finish up?
We will release a song trailer soon that has a big song in there, and probably another trailer. So watch out for that. Coming soon to a YouTube channel near you.
Well, I really look forward to finding out more about it. As I said, it looks and sounds amazing. And yeah, well, thank you very much for joining me, Ralph. And
thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And thank you as well to the people in the chat for joining us. This will be available on the podcast and on YouTube at a later time as well. And thanks again to Hitzent. I forgot to thank them in the previous interviews for hosting the Big Adventure event. And
big thank you.
So, well, the very best of luck with the development, and I'm sure we will keep in touch.
Thank you so much.